Ubisoft just officially announced their new Assassin's Creed game called Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I'm going to break down everything we know about it so far for you, including official and unofficial information, as well as some new exclusive game file entries in the Valhalla client surrounding AC Mirage that hasn't been shown anywhere else thanks to Pedder. So a healthy spoiler alert here, and get your salt shaker ready. But that said, you won't need it just yet, because as I just mentioned, it's all above board now and has been confirmed by Ubisoft on Twitter, stating that they'll be telling us more about this game at their Ubisoft Forward presentation, which will take place on the Ubisoft YouTube channel at 9 PM CST, 12 PM PT, and 8 PM BST. Now, this event won't just be for Assassin's Creed Mirage, by the way, so do expect some other game presentations, as Tom Henderson, industry leaker, did say back in March that games such as Skull and Bones, Avatar, the sequel to Immortals, Phoenix Rising, were planning on being showcased in the same event, so expect Ubisoft to go full send and build hype in regard to all of their inbound games next week. But that said, when will AC Mirage actually be coming out? Well, the straight up answer is they haven't said just yet, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a solid idea of when it will arrive already. Back in July, during Ubisoft's Q2 financial call, they officially stated that their upcoming Avatar game, as well as a small unannounced premium title, will be delayed until spring next year. And we can only assume that this is the premium title called Mirage, which was up until recently called Rift as an internal code name used by the studio, which was also confirmed by the chief financial officer, Frederick Duguay, in their Q1 call at the start of the year. Additionally, thanks to Winter Hertz in our Discord community, invite link down below by the way, he found the recently announced book called Assassin's Creed The Golden City on Amazon, which has a release date of April the 4th next year, and I'll also put that link in the pinned comments as well so you can check out. But this book follows the story of Hytham and Basim fighting against the Order of the Ancients threat while uncovering Basim's true intentions. Now, this is interesting, as Ubisoft does like to release books, comics, and transmedia after they release their new content. A recent example of this is the Dawn of Ragnarok Forgotten Myth comic that was released a few weeks after the free DLC expansion, so we can therefore deduce that we have a provisional April 4th date, and unless that is a placeholder, we can expect AC Mirage perhaps before that date or after it if it is indeed pushed back. But either way, that does fall within that spring time frame between the dates of March the 20th and June 21st. And by the way, if you have found the video informative so far, please do leave a very swift like down below. It genuinely really helps me out on YouTube, so thank you very much. Alright then, so let's talk about some recent leaks which were originally posted to Twitter by ScriptLeaks R6, who is the original source of this AC Mirage The 40 Thieves quest picture. Now, as reported by Forbes, Ubisoft have been issuing strikes on Twitter specifically regarding this image, but for whatever reason have decided to permit this original leak to remain active whilst going on to strike their most enthusiastic community supporters and commentators, which I've got to be honest is quite baffling to me. But there we go, the cat is out the bag now. And regardless of that, a couple cool things about this image is that first and foremost, it does line up visually with the official art Ubisoft announced Mirage with, and in Ubisoft's own efforts to quell this rumor, they've inadvertently confirmed it to be authentic by striking everybody on Twitter who shared it, apart from the initial dude who's actually shared it.
That doesn't make sense.
But that said, what is the 40 Thieves? Well, this is an Arabic folktale from the 1001 Night collection from the Islamic Golden Age. Ali Baba, a woodcutter, discovers a thieves' den and then enters it by saying the phrase, "Open sesame." Now, the thieves not too happy about this, plot to try and kill him, but then he foils that plot and keeps the secret treasure inside the cave. So I can see this working perfectly in the AC universe, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is a pre-order bonus, as we did see something similar with AC Valhalla called The Way of the Berserker, which you picked up if you did purchase the game ahead of release. Now, on top of that, we also have a new musical soundtrack inbound, which is rumored to be released on September the 9th, as a link has already been generated to pre-save the song for that specific date on all platforms, yet it's not fully functional. So the song has been written by Aurora, who is a Norwegian singer, and it will be called Hunting Shadows. So do expect a cinematic trailer of AC Mirage next week, just purely because of this, I would say. Alright then, so with all that said, what will this game actually be about? Well, Jonathan, a French YouTuber, has leaked a lot of info about this game ahead of time due to his contacts inside Ubisoft, and I'm not going to go through absolutely everything he's mentioned in his own video, as a lot of this info will likely be confirmed at Ubisoft Forward next week, but I will leave links to his video and a full breakdown posted on Reddit if you fancy a full dive perusal. That said, some of the key things of interest I do want to bring your attention to though, and that is the game will take place between 860 and 870 in Baghdad, which is 12 years before Valhalla, which takes place in 872 AD and is during the Anarchy of Samarra, which was a period of extreme instability in the Abbasid Caliphate, with Baghdad being the main political city in the region at the time. The map will be divided into 4 regions, with each of their own bosses in each one respectively, with Jonathan going on to mention that Baghdad is the biggest city Ubisoft have created to date, which does sound pretty encouraging. Now, allegedly, there will be no dialogue options, no leveling system, and no gender choices as we play as a young Basim working his way through the Assassin Brotherhood. Throwing knives and rope darts also return from earlier AC titles, which we can actually see Basim use in the fight between Eivor and himself in Valhalla, so perhaps another sneaky teaser from Ubisoft on what's potentially to come there, as well as there being a stronger focus on stealth and parkour, which I'm going to elaborate on in just a second. However, the game is expected to have a lot more NPCs within it, and the goal of this game is to bring back the crowded streets of the earlier titles into the forefront of this revamped RPG franchise. And what I would say is our recent official key art certainly hints at this, which I also think is encouraging, but equally I do think managing our own expectations at this stage is quite important. That said, Jonathan mentions that this game will have a strong inspiration taken from AC1, and this is where we find out how Basim became Loki in Valhalla. So if you haven't played Assassin's Creed Valhalla yet, it may be worth doing so before Mirage, as this game is considered a prequel to the events that took place there. Now let's talk about some game file entries that Pedder has found in the Valhalla client that directly refers to Rift, or what we now know officially as AC Mirage. And very swiftly, if you weren't aware who Pedder is, and if this is your first time visiting the channel, he's been investigating the Valhalla game files after every title update for nearly the last 2 years, and what you're seeing on your screen right now is everything that he's found in the game files before it was officially announced. But that said, and he does say this himself, everything is subject to change, so do bear that in mind, but I think his record speaks for itself. Now, back in April, Pedder did find reference to the level design of Rift in Baghdad, confirming this speculated location, as well as references to improved tests that were ongoing for stealth detection, parkour improvements, and social blending within the Baghdad map, which corroborates with what Jonathan has just said. And this makes sense, as the Mirage game is built on the back of the Valhalla engine and lots of assets will be reused. So because of that crossover, this is how these game file entries have made it into Valhalla. Additionally, Pedder has found multiple new references to the last chapter, which is what Ubisoft seem to be calling the end quest of Eivor's story, as represented by the TLC in the game files, with MQ40 meaning a main quest, and interestingly, a Hytham Bureau setup here, where Pedder tells me this is very different from the Settlement Assassin Bureau in the game files, which is also in Ravensthorpe. So could Hytham be setting up a bureau in Vinland, which is modern day North America, and where we know Eivor ultimately dies? And it doesn't stop there though, because in the same last chapter questline, we see a mechanic noted here as Basim Interacts, which is found next to the data file entries Rift Teaser, Dock Settlement, and Rift Teaser military camp. So it seems to me that we may be picking up an in-game Mirage teaser within this last chapter quest at the end of the year involving Basim as a segue of sorts, before we dive into this new AC Mirage game involving a younger Basim before he travels to England and meets Eivor. And I think this is how we'll get to understand how Loki's consciousness becomes fused with Basim's, and how he makes it his mission to find his children in the modern day. Now, if you haven't already done so, do subscribe to keep up to date with everything Assassin's Creed. I've made over 200 videos on AC Valhalla, and I will be covering AC Mirage from start to finish. And we've also got a huge amount of new info still to come, so it would be great to have you along for the ride. Big thanks to GebakkenDonut, Pedder, Nika, Dennis, and Black for helping me pull all of this info together into a video for you, and you Reloaders for supporting me with your channel memberships. I am very grateful. Thank you very much. Anyway, catch you in the next AC Mirage video, which should be on your screen right now. Hopefully see you there in just a second. Coffee is on me.